Windows is now your canvas for AI and agents. We're innovating in 3 key ways. First, bringing AI and agents into your flow and making it more intuitive to use. And second, making Microsoft 365 Copilot more contextually helpful on Windows. And third, making Copilot Plus PCs even more powerful with enhanced AI.
There's a version of Windows you remember. Maybe it was the startup chime, the desktop wallpaper you set yourself, the feeling that once you paid for it, it was yours. That version still exists, technically. The logo is the same, the taskbar is still there, but something underneath it has changed, quietly, structurally. Windows used to be something you bought. Today, it isn't. And most people haven't even noticed the moment it changed. And this isn't a story about a company cutting corners. It's not a complaint. It's something more interesting than that. It's the story of how the most successful software in history became something else entirely different, without most people ever noticing. Because what changed wasn't Windows. What changed was what Microsoft needed Windows to do. If you're new here, this channel is about the decisions, systems, and turning points that quietly shape the world. Subscribe if that's your thing. We're just getting started. Go back to 1995. Windows 95 launches. It's not just software. It's a cultural event. The Rolling Stones license a song for the commercial. People line up outside stores at midnight, not for a phone, for an operating system. And the reason is simple. This is the gateway to the modern world. You bought it once, you installed it, it ran, it was yours. Windows 98, Windows 2000, Windows XP, arguably the most beloved operating system ever made. Then Windows 7, which to this day millions of people will tell you was the peak. Clean, fast, predictable. There was a clarity to it. Microsoft made the software, you paid for the software, the transaction was complete. But here's the thing about clarity. It only lasts as long as the incentives stay aligned. And somewhere along the way, that started to change. It didn't happen overnight. That's what makes it easy to miss. The first signal came quietly, through a product most people ignored at launch, Office 365. Not a new version of Word, not a boxed copy of Excel, a subscription. Monthly, recurring, renewable. That distinction between a product you buy and a service you subscribe to turns out to be one of the most consequential business model changes in modern tech history. Because a subscription doesn't just change how you pay, it changes what the company optimizes for. When you sell a product once, your incentive is to make it great enough that someone hands you money. When you sell a subscription, your incentive is different. Now you need that person to stay, every month, every year. You need them engaged, dependent, embedded. The goal isn't the sale, it's the relationship. The model shifted. And Microsoft saw something that most people didn't see yet. The future of enterprise software wasn't in boxes on shelves. It was in the cloud. It was in services. It was in becoming the invisible infrastructure that businesses couldn't function without. So they moved fast. Azure, Microsoft's cloud platform, starts growing at a rate that makes investors sit up straight. Microsoft 365 bundles email, storage, collaboration, communication into one subscription. Teams becomes the backbone of how millions of companies work. And suddenly, the math changes. By the early 2020s, Azure and Microsoft's cloud services are generating more revenue than Windows ever did at its peak. The cloud business alone is bringing in tens of billions of dollars a year, which raises an obvious question. If the cloud is the business now, what exactly is Windows? Here's where it starts to click. Open a new Windows 11 PC. Before you ever use it, before you open a browser, before you write a single document, you're greeted with a setup flow that has a very specific shape. It wants you to sign in with a Microsoft account. Not a local account, a Microsoft account. One connected to their servers. One that by design starts pulling you toward OneDrive, toward Bing, toward Edge, toward a whole orbit of services that sit behind that login. You can opt out of some of it, but the defaults tell the story. The defaults are not neutral. They never are. Edge opens automatically. It suggests Bing. OneDrive turns on. Copilot, Microsoft's AI assistant, appears in the taskbar, not as a separate install, not as a choice, as furniture, just part of the room. And if you look at each of these things individually, it's easy to dismiss them. A browser preference, a cloud backup toggle, a search bar, small things. But that's not what they are. Each one of those touch points is a thread. And every thread leads back to the same place: Microsoft's ecosystem, Microsoft's subscriptions, Microsoft's data, Microsoft's revenue. Windows isn't the destination anymore. Windows is the door. And once you see that, you start to see it everywhere. The Start menu has ads or suggested apps, depending on how generous you're feeling. The Widgets panel pulls news and content through MSN. The default PDF viewer nudges you toward Edge. Even the Settings app has a section titled Get More from Your Microsoft Account. None of this is broken. None of this is technically wrong. But it is intentional in a way that old Windows wasn't. The old Windows was designed to get out of your way. This Windows is designed to keep you close. Here's what that feels like from the other side. You sit down to do something simple: print a document, change a setting, find a file. And instead of a clear path, there's friction. A prompt you didn't expect. A browser you didn't ask for. A recommendation where there used to be nothing. It's not catastrophic, it's low grade, a kind of ambient resistance that builds up over time. People describe it in forums, in comment sections, in conversations. The feeling that their computer is doing things for Microsoft, not for them. That the defaults don't reflect their preferences, they reflect someone else's interests. And the frustrating part is that it's hard to articulate. Nothing is broken. Everything technically works. But the relationship feels different. Less like ownership, more like tenancy. It's not that Windows stops working, it's that it stops feeling like it's yours. There's a word for this in behavioral economics: friction. And friction is never accidental. It's designed. Every extra click toward Microsoft services is a nudge. Every default that saves you a step toward their ecosystem is a quiet hand on your shoulder. The users feel it. They just don't always have the language for it. But what's actually happening is structural, not personal. Let's zoom out, all the way out. Microsoft's revenue in the early 2010s was heavily dependent on Windows licenses and Office sales. Hardware manufacturers paid per install. Consumers bought boxed copies. That was the engine. Today, Windows licensing, the thing that used to be the core of the entire company, represents a relatively modest slice of Microsoft's total revenue. Meanwhile, Intelligent Cloud, the segment that includes Azure, has become the dominant force. Microsoft 365, Dynamics, LinkedIn, GitHub, Xbox Game Pass, all subscriptions, all services, all ecosystem plays. Microsoft doesn't rely on Windows revenue anymore. It relies on an ecosystem revenue. And that changes everything about how you read the product. Because if Windows were just a product, like it used to be, the incentive would be to make it as clean and frictionless as possible, so you'd want to buy the next version. Pay again? Upgrade. But Windows as a gateway operates on a completely different logic. The incentive isn't to make you want to buy Windows. The incentive is to make you dependent on the ecosystem Windows leads you into. The telemetry, the account integration, the default apps, the cloud connectivity. These aren't bugs or oversights. They are the architecture of a strategy that took shape over a decade and is now fully mature. And here's the part that often gets lost in the frustration. It worked. Microsoft is one of the most valuable companies in the world. Azure competes with Amazon. Microsoft 365 is embedded in nearly every enterprise on the planet. The transition from a product company to a services company, one of the hardest pivots in business history, Microsoft executed almost perfectly. Windows was the key to doing that, not as the product, as the platform, as the installed base, as the 1.4 billion devices that give Microsoft a direct line to users, businesses, and institutions every single day. That installed base is enormously valuable, not because of what it earns Microsoft directly, but because of where it leads. The door is free. The room has a subscription. So what do you do with this? That's the question people often jump to, and it's the wrong one to start with. Before alternatives, before decisions, there's something more useful. Understanding. Windows didn't suddenly get worse because Microsoft stopped caring. That framing misses the point entirely. Windows evolved because the system around it evolved. The incentives changed, the revenue model shifted, and the product, inevitably, structurally, followed. This is how large systems work, not through villains and betrayals, but through slow realignments of interest, through strategies that make perfect sense from one angle and feel like friction from another. The person who bought Windows XP in 2003 and the person who boots up Windows 11 today are technically using the same product lineage, but the contract underneath it is completely different. One was a transaction, the other is a relationship, with terms that can change. There's something worth sitting with in that. We tend to evaluate software the way we evaluate appliances. Does it work? Is it fast? Does it crash? But the more important question, the one that shapes everything else, is what is the thing actually trying to do? Not for you, for the company that made it. Because once you understand that, the defaults make sense. The nudges make sense. The account prompts, and the integrated browsers, and the AI assistant living in your taskbar, all of it makes sense. Not as mistakes, not as neglect, as the logical output of a system that changed its goals. Windows isn't broken. It's repurposed. And maybe that's fine. Maybe the trade-off is acceptable. A free upgrade path, a stable platform, a door into services that genuinely help people. Reasonable people can look at that deal and say yes. But that only works if you understand what you're trading. In retrospect, stories behind the decisions, secrets, and turning points that shape our world.